The plasma cannons screamed across the void as Queen Elena Martinez watched her human fleet prepare for what every military advisor called suicide. The Zephyrian armada stretched before them like a metallic constellation, 3,000 ships strong against her mere 200. Admiral Jake Thompson stood beside her on the bridge of the flagship Aurora, his weathered face showing no fear despite the impossible odds. "Your Majesty, the Zephyrian commander is broadcasting on all frequencies," Communications Officer Lisa Parker announced. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." Elena's dark eyes remained fixed on the enemy formation. The Zephyrians had violated every peace treaty, enslaved entire human colonies, and now threatened Earth itself. Their ships gleamed with advanced shielding technology that had proven nearly impenetrable in previous battles. The alien species had ruled the galaxy for centuries, considering humans nothing more than primitive insects. "Tell them," Elena said quietly, "that Queen Elena Martinez of the Human Federation declines their generous offer." Admiral Thompson smiled grimly. "Ma'am, Operation Wildfire is ready for your command." Operation Wildfire, the plan that had taken months to develop and would either save humanity or destroy it completely. Elena knew that what they were about to do would violate every established law of galactic warfare. The Treaty of Cosmic Ethics, the Geneva Accords of 2387, the Neutral Zone Conventions, all would be shattered in the next few minutes. "Admiral, are our people in position?" Elena asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. Captain Rodriguez has the stealth ships ready behind the asteroid field. Commander Brown's bombers are cloaked and waiting. The entire fleet knows their assignments." The Zephyrian flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Death's Promise, began broadcasting again. Their leader spoke in the clicking, harsh language of his species, which the translation systems converted into cold, mechanical words. "Human insects, you have 30 seconds to surrender before we demonstrate why your species should have remained on your primitive world. Your pathetic ships cannot penetrate our defenses." Elena turned to face her bridge crew. Each officer looked back at her with absolute determination. These were humans who had volunteered for a mission they knew might be their last. Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres at the weapons console, her fingers dancing over the controls. Navigator Paul Garcia, calculating trajectories that would have been impossible for any other species. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh, monitoring systems that pushed human technology beyond its designed limits. "Begin Phase 1, Elena ordered. The Aurora and her sister ships suddenly accelerated forward at speeds that should have crushed their crews. Human engineering had solved problems that no other species had even attempted. While the Zephyrians relied on their superior numbers and defensive technology, humans had focused on mobility and unconventional tactics. The enemy formation began to shift, clearly surprised by the aggressive maneuver. Zephyrian commanders had studied human tactics for decades and expected the typical frontal assault, followed by organized retreat. They had no idea what was coming. "Phase 1 complete," Admiral Thompson reported. "Enemy ships are repositioning exactly as predicted." Elena watched as the Zephyrian fleet moved into what they assumed was an optimal intercept pattern. Their massive ships were incredibly powerful, but also slow and predictable. The aliens had become comfortable with their superiority, making them vulnerable to truly desperate tactics. "Initiate Phase 2, Elena commanded. Suddenly, space around the Zephyrian fleet erupted with explosions. Hidden mines that had been placed weeks earlier by suicide volunteers detonated throughout their formation. But these weren't ordinary explosives. Human scientists had developed something new. Something that ignored conventional shielding by targeting the quantum foundations of matter itself. The alien ships shuddered as their shields fluctuated wildly. Several smaller vessels actually began to break apart as their hulls destabilized at the molecular level. The Zephyrian commander's angry clicking filled the communication channels. "Phase 3, Your Majesty," Admiral Thompson said quietly. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. Elena nodded slowly, knowing that she was about to order actions that would horrify the civilized galaxy. The humans had discovered that the Zephyrian life support systems relied on a specific atmospheric mixture that could be turned against them. "Release the nanites," Elena whispered. Invisible clouds of microscopic machines began spreading throughout the enemy fleet. Each nanite was programmed with artificial intelligence that exceeded anything the galaxy had seen before. They would infiltrate Zephyrian ships through microscopic hull breaches and begin systematically disrupting every electronic system they encountered. Within minutes, the mighty Zephyrian Armada began to experience cascading system failures. Their weapons went offline, life support became unreliable, and navigation systems provided false readings. The perfectly coordinated alien fleet descended into chaos as individual ships lost contact with their command structure. Admiral Thompson stared at the tactical display in amazement. "Your Majesty, it's working better than our most optimistic projections." Elena felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. "This is just the beginning, Admiral. Order all ships to advance to Phase 4 positions. Human Queen watches as humans shatter all laws of war in one battle." The nanite assault had crippled the Zephyrian fleet's coordination, but Elena knew their superior numbers still posed a deadly threat. Individual alien ships remained dangerous even without central command. The Death's Promise, their massive flagship, had somehow maintained partial shielding and was beginning to adapt to the nanite infiltration. "Your Majesty," Communications Officer Lisa Parker called out urgently, "we are receiving distress signals from the colony ships behind us. Zephyrian reinforcements are approaching Earth's outer defenses." Elena's blood ran cold. Intelligence had indicated this was the enemy's primary fleet, but clearly they had kept reserves hidden. More human civilians would die if this battle lasted much longer. The time had come for the most controversial phase of Operation Wildfire. "Admiral Thompson, initiate psychological warfare protocols," Elena ordered. The Admiral hesitated for just a moment. "Ma'am, are you certain?" "Once we cross that line, there's no returning to conventional warfare. They crossed the line when they enslaved our colonies," Elena replied firmly. "Execute Phase 4. Across the human fleet, specialized transmission arrays began broadcasting directly into Zephyrian neural networks. Human scientists had spent years studying captured alien brain tissue, developing weapons that attacked the mind rather than the body. The broadcasts carried carefully crafted information designed to trigger terror responses in Zephyrian psychology. The effect was immediate and devastating. Alien ships began firing randomly at each other as their crews experienced overwhelming panic. The Zephyrians had no defense against psychological warfare because their society had never developed such brutally effective mental weapons. Captain Maria Rodriguez emerged from the asteroid field with her stealth squadron, appearing suddenly among the confused enemy ships. Her vessels carried weapons that violated the biological warfare convention by targeting specific genetic markers found only in Zephyrian DNA. "Stealth squadron engaging targets," Rodriguez reported calmly. "Bioweapons deployed successfully." Elena watched as alien ships began going dark. The genetic weapons didn't destroy the vessels directly, but they rendered the crews unconscious by disrupting their unique neural chemistry. It was a fate arguably worse than death, leaving thousands of enemies in permanent catatonic states. The bridge fell silent, except for the steady reports of system status and tactical updates. Elena could see the horror in some of her officers' eyes as they realized the full scope of what humanity had become capable of. Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres looked pale as she monitored the bioweapon effectiveness ratings. "Your Majesty," Torres said quietly, "the genetic weapons are exceeding projected efficiency by 40%. "And Commander Brown's bomber squadron?" Navigator Paul Garcia checked his displays, approaching the Death's Promise from below their sensor grid. "The flagship's crew appears to be experiencing severe psychological distress from our neural broadcasts." The Zephyrian flagship had been the terror of the galaxy for decades, destroying entire human settlements with methodical precision. Its commander had personally ordered the execution of captured human prisoners, violating every civilized rule of engagement. Elena felt no mercy as she prepared to demonstrate humanity's capacity for creative destruction. "Commander Brown," Elena spoke directly into the communication array, "you are authorized to deploy Project Mindbreaker." Project Mindbreaker represented the darkest achievement of human military science. The weapon created localized reality distortions that drove enemy crews insane by showing them impossible visual and auditory hallucinations. It had been designed specifically to target the Zephyrian nervous system's weakness to sensory overload. The bomber squadron approached the massive alien flagship like predators stalking wounded prey. Brown ships were barely visible against the cosmic background, using stealth technology that bent light around their hulls. The Zephyrians had no equivalent to human innovation in covert operations. Mindbreaker deployed against primary target, Commander Brown reported. The Death's Promise began to shudder and spin as its crew lost all connection to reality. The ship's enormous weapons fired wildly into empty space as alien officers battled enemies that existed only in their fractured minds. The vessel that had once been the symbol of Zephyrian dominance became a helpless victim of human psychological warfare. Elena turned to Admiral Thompson. Order all ships to advance to final positions. It's time for Phase 5. The Admiral's expression reflected the weight of what they were about to do. Your Majesty, Phase 5 will make everything we've done so far seem merciful by comparison. I'm aware of that, Admiral, but the galaxy needs to understand that humanity will no longer accept the role of prey. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh looked up from his console with obvious concern. Ma'am, the quantum destabilizers are ready, but once we activate them, there's no controlling the reaction. We could accidentally tear holes in space itself. Elena stared at the chaos surrounding them. Disabled Zephyrian ships drifted helplessly while others fired at hallucinations created by human psychological weapons. The once mighty alien fleet had been reduced to confused victims of warfare techniques that no civilized species had ever imagined. The Zephyrians have ruled the galaxy through fear for centuries, Elena said. Today, they learn what true fear means. She raised her hand toward the main tactical display. All ships, execute Phase 5. Show them what happens when humans stop following the rules. The order went out across the fleet, and Elena watched as her people prepared to unleash weapons that would redefine galactic warfare forever. Human Queen watches as humans shatter all laws of war. In one battle, the quantum destabilizers activated simultaneously across the human fleet, creating ripples in the fabric of space itself. Elena watched in fascination and horror as reality began to warp around the disabled Zephyrian vessels. The alien ships stretched and twisted, like images reflected in a funhouse mirror. Their crews experiencing the ultimate psychological weapon, the complete breakdown of physical laws. Quantum distortion field stable, Chief Engineer Danny Walsh reported, though his voice carried deep concern. Ma'am, we're literally rewriting physics in localized areas. The Zephyrians have no frame of reference for what's happening to them. The Death's Promise had become trapped in a bubble where time moved backward, forcing its crew to experience their recent terror in reverse while remaining conscious of the forward progression. Other alien ships found themselves in gravity wells that pulled in random directions, creating impossible sensations that drove their occupants to complete madness. Admiral Thompson studied the tactical readouts with professional detachment. Your Majesty, enemy resistance has dropped to less than 5%. Most Zephyrian vessels are completely disabled. Elena felt no satisfaction in the victory. What humanity had accomplished here would echo throughout galactic history as the day civilized warfare died forever. The techniques they had employed broke every moral and legal boundary established by thousands of years of interspecies conflict. Your Majesty, Communications Officer Lisa Parker interrupted. We're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Collins at Earth Defense Command. Put him through, Elena ordered. Admiral Collins appeared on the main screen, his face grave with urgent news. Queen Martinez, our deep space sensors have detected massive Zephyrian reinforcement fleets approaching from 3 different vectors. They're mobilizing everything they have in response to your battle. Elena's blood ran cold. The victory here would mean nothing if Earth itself fell to enemy counterattacks. The human homeworld's defenses were formidable, but not against the entire Zephyrian military might. How long do we have? Elena asked. 18 hours before the first wave arrives, 72 hours for full fleet convergence. Ma'am, they're bringing siege platforms capable of cracking planetary surfaces. Elena turned to Admiral Thompson. Can we reach Earth in time to help defend it? The Admiral shook his head. Not with conventional propulsion. We'd need to use the experimental dimensional gates, and that technology hasn't been fully tested. The dimensional gates represented humanity's most dangerous technological achievement. They created artificial wormholes through space-time, allowing near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. However, the energy requirements were enormous, and the psychological effects on crews were largely unknown. Your Majesty, Navigator Paul Garcia spoke up. I've been running calculations on dimensional gate deployment. We could reach Earth, but the power requirements would drain our ship's defensive systems completely. Elena weighed the options quickly. Stay here and consolidate their unprecedented victory while Earth faced annihilation, or risk everything on untested technology to defend humanity's birth world. The choice was obvious, even if the consequences were terrifying. Order all ships to prepare for dimensional gate transit, Elena commanded. We're going home. Captain Maria Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication array from her stealth squadron. Your Majesty, what about the disabled Zephyrian ships? Some of them are beginning to recover from our attacks. Elena looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of enemy vessels in various states of distress. Leaving them here would allow them to eventually regroup and pursue the human fleet. Traditional warfare doctrine called for securing prisoners and disabled enemies, but these were not traditional circumstances. Deploy the final phase protocols, Elena ordered quietly. The bridge fell silent. Every officer understood what final phase meant. It was the complete abandonment of mercy, the decision to ensure that no enemy would ever threaten humanity again. The protocols involved weapons so devastating that using them would mark humans as the most ruthless species in galactic history. Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres looked up from her weapons console. Ma'am, final phase will leave no survivors. Are you absolutely certain? Elena stared at the disabled alien ships, thinking of all the human colonies that had been enslaved or destroyed by Zephyrian cruelty. The aliens had shown no mercy to human civilians, including children and elderly populations. They had treated humans as subservient beings worthy only of exploitation or elimination. Execute final phase protocols, Elena commanded. Then, prepare for dimensional gate activation. The human fleet's most terrible weapons engaged simultaneously. Molecular dissociation beams reduced disabled Zephyrian ships to their component atoms. Temporal disruptor fields accelerated local time around enemy vessels until they aged thousands of years in seconds. Consciousness extraction arrays pulled the minds from alien crews and stored them in digital prisons where they would experience eternal torment. Within minutes, the once mighty Zephyrian Armada had been completely obliterated. No ships remained. No survivors existed to report what had happened. The weapons humanity had used were so advanced and brutal that other galactic civilizations would struggle to understand how such technology was even possible. Final phase complete, Admiral Thompson reported with hollow professionalism. All enemy vessels have been eliminated. Elena nodded grimly. Begin dimensional gate charging sequence. We have a homeworld to defend. The Aurora and her sister ships began generating the massive energy fields required for dimensional travel. Space around the human fleet started shifting colors as reality prepared to fold in on itself. What they were about to attempt had never been tried with an entire battle fleet. Dimensional gates achieving stable resonance, Chief Engineer Danny Walsh announced. Ma'am, once we enter the gates, there's no guarantee we'll emerge in the same timeline or dimensional space. Elena looked around her bridge at the officers who had helped her redefine the nature of warfare itself. These humans had proven that their species could be more creative, brutal, and effective than any alien civilization had imagined possible. Open the gates, Elena ordered. Earth is waiting. Human Queen watches as humans shatter all laws of war in one battle. The dimensional gates erupted open like tears in reality itself, revealing swirling vortexes of pure energy that hurt to look at directly. Elena gripped the command chair as the Aurora plunged into the artificial wormhole, followed by the rest of the human fleet. The sensation of dimensional travel hit every crew member simultaneously, a feeling of being stretched across infinite space while compressed into a single point. Navigator Paul Garcia screamed warnings about temporal distortions and gravitational anomalies, but his voice sounded distorted and strange as they moved through folded space. Elena watched the main display show impossible images of stars being born and dying simultaneously. of galaxies spinning backward through time, hull stress at critical levels. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh shouted over the dimensional storm. The ships weren't designed for this kind of reality manipulation. Elena felt her consciousness fragmenting as they traveled through the gate. For terrifying moments, she experienced multiple versions of herself existing in parallel dimensions. In one reality, she saw herself as a peaceful diplomat who had never ordered the brutal weapons deployed. In another, she was a ruthless empress who had conquered the entire galaxy through similar tactics. The Aurora emerged from the dimensional gate in Earth's solar system with alarms blaring throughout the ship. Elena's vision cleared to see the blue marble of humanity's homeworld directly ahead, surrounded by massive Zephyrian siege platforms that blotted out the stars. Damage report, Admiral Thompson called out as officers struggled to regain their bearings from the dimensional transit. 30% of our ships experienced hull fractures during transit, Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres reported. Weapons systems are functioning, but our defensive capabilities are severely compromised. Elena studied the tactical situation with growing alarm. The Zephyrian siege platforms were even larger than intelligence reports had indicated. Each one was capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten rock within hours. Worse, they were accompanied by escort fleets that outnumbered the human defenders by enormous margins. Your Majesty, Communications Officer Lisa Parker announced, Admiral Collins is requesting immediate tactical coordination. Earth's defense platforms are taking heavy fire. The main display showed the battle raging around Earth's orbital defenses. Human ships fought desperately against overwhelming odds, while alien siege weapons slowly moved into position for planetary bombardment. Elena could see missile trails and energy beams crisscrossing space like deadly fireworks. Open a channel to all human forces, Elena ordered. This is Queen Elena Martinez. We're implementing emergency protocols that will violate every remaining law of civilized warfare. Any personnel who cannot participate should evacuate immediately. Admiral Thompson looked at her with concern. Your Majesty, what emergency protocols? We've already used our most extreme weapons. Elena's expression grew cold with determination. We're going to use the Zephyrians' own technology against them in ways they never imagined possible. During our battles, our nanites have been collecting detailed scans of their ship designs, crew biology, and system vulnerabilities. She turned to Chief Engineer Danny Walsh. Do we have sufficient nanite data to attempt complete system infiltration of the siege platforms? Yes, ma'am. But what you're suggesting would require nanites to evolve beyond their original programming in real time. We'd be creating artificial intelligence that exceeds our ability to control. Elena nodded grimly. Release evolutionary nanites with complete adaptive authorization. Let them become whatever they need to be to stop those siege platforms. The order went out across the human fleet, and trillions of nanites were released into space with one directive: evolve until you can completely dominate alien technology. Each microscopic machine carried genetic algorithms that allowed it to rewrite its own programming based on environmental challenges. Within minutes, the nanites had formed collective intelligence networks that began analyzing Zephyrian technology with superhuman efficiency. They started infiltrating the siege platforms through microscopic gaps, then began evolving specialized variants designed to exploit every weakness they discovered. Captain Maria Rodriguez's stealth squadron took advantage of the nanite infiltration to approach the largest siege platform undetected. Her ships carried the most controversial weapons in humanity's arsenal: consciousness transfer devices that could move human minds into alien bodies. Rodriguez to Queen Martinez, the captain reported. We're preparing to board the primary siege platform using consciousness transfer protocols. My volunteers are ready to abandon their human bodies permanently. Elena felt the weight of ordering people to sacrifice their physical existence for the mission. The consciousness transfer process was one way and irreversible. Rodriguez's volunteers would become trapped in alien bodies, fighting from within the enemy's most powerful weapons. Authorization granted, Elena said quietly. God help us all for what we've become. The consciousness transfer beams activated, pulling human minds from their bodies and shooting them directly into Zephyrian nervous systems aboard the siege platforms. Elena watched as her people's consciousness took control of alien bodies and began sabotaging the massive weapons from within. Admiral Thompson monitored the infiltration with professional fascination. Your Majesty, Our people are reporting complete success. They're operating alien bodies as if they were born in them. The siege platforms began experiencing cascading failures as human consciousness proved more adaptable than Zephyrian minds. Weapons that had been charging for planetary bombardment suddenly turned toward their own escort fleets. The aliens found themselves under attack by their own most powerful vessels. Elena opened communication channels to the commandeered siege platforms. "This is Queen Martinez to all transferred personnel. You have made the ultimate sacrifice for humanity. Your orders are to turn those weapons against every Zephyrian ship in the system." The response came from Captain Rodriguez, but her voice now carried the clicking overtones of Zephyrian vocal cords. "Understood, Your Majesty. We are no longer human, but we remember why we fight. Human Queen watches as humans shatter all laws of war in one battle." The commandeered siege platforms turned their devastating firepower against the Zephyrian escort fleets with ruthless efficiency. Elena watched in amazement as weapons designed to crack planets apart began systematically destroying enemy ships that had no defense against such overwhelming force. The aliens had never imagined their own ultimate weapons could be turned against them so completely. "Your Majesty," Navigator Paul Garcia announced with excitement, "the evolutionary nanites are reporting successful integration with all major Zephyrian systems. They've achieved something unprecedented. They're actually improving alien technology while they control it." Elena studied the tactical displays showing nanite activity throughout the enemy fleet. The microscopic machines had evolved far beyond their original programming, developing collective intelligence that bordered on digital consciousness. They were rewriting alien software, optimizing hardware performance, and creating hybrid technologies that exceeded what either species had achieved independently. Admiral Thompson shook his head in disbelief. "Ma'am, our nanites are essentially becoming a new form of artificial life. They're not just controlling Zephyrian ships, they're making them better than the originals." The evolutionary process accelerated rapidly as nanites encountered increasingly complex challenges. They began developing specialized forms, some designed for combat, others for infiltration, and still others for pure technological integration. Within an hour, they had created a symbiotic relationship with captured alien vessels that transformed them into hybrid human Zephyrian warships. "This is Admiral Collins from Earth Defense Command," came a transmission from the planet's surface. "Your Majesty, whatever you're doing up there is working. Enemy resistance has collapsed across all sectors." Elena felt a moment of grim satisfaction before new alarms began sounding throughout the Aurora. Communications Officer Lisa Parker looked up from her station with alarm. "Your Majesty, we're detecting massive energy signatures from deep space. Something enormous is approaching our solar system." The main tactical display shifted to show long-range sensor readings. What appeared was beyond anything the human intelligence services had ever encountered. A Zephyrian super dreadnought the size of a small moon, accompanied by automated war factories that were already producing replacement ships for their destroyed fleets. "Estimated time to engagement?" Elena asked quietly. 6 hours, at current approach speed," Paul Garcia reported. "Ma'am, that super dreadnought alone carries enough firepower to destroy everything in the system, including Earth." Elena realized that all their victories had been against conventional Zephyrian forces. The aliens had been holding back their ultimate weapons, probably hoping to capture human technology intact. Now they were committed to total war, with no concern for preserving anything. "Admiral Thompson, what's the status of our most extreme protocols?" Thompson checked classified files that even most senior officers had never seen. "Your Majesty, we have one final option. Project Genesis. The complete reconstruction of human consciousness into energy-based life forms. It would make us immortal, and give us capabilities that exceed any known technology." Elena stared at the approaching super dreadnought, while considering the implications. "Project Genesis would transform humanity into beings of pure energy, abandoning physical existence entirely. They would become something beyond biological life, but also beyond everything that had made them human." "Sir," Chief Engineer Danny Walsh interrupted, "the evolutionary nanites are requesting permission to attempt direct integration with human neural systems. They believe they can enhance our consciousness without requiring us to abandon physical form." The request was unprecedented. The nanites had evolved to the point of making independent decisions and offering partnerships rather than simply following orders. They had become a new form of artificial life that wanted to merge with their creators. Elena looked around her bridge at officers who had already sacrificed so much for humanity's survival. They had violated every law of civilized warfare, committed acts that would horrify future historians, and pushed the boundaries of technology beyond recognition. Now they faced a choice that would determine not just their survival, but their very nature as a species. Open communication channels to all remaining human forces, Elena commanded. This is Queen Elena Martinez with a final order. We're going to merge with our own artificial creations and become something the galaxy has never seen before. Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres looked up from her weapons console with concern. Your Majesty, are you ordering the complete transformation of humanity? Elena nodded slowly. The alternative is extinction. But this way, we become something that can never be conquered or enslaved again. She activated the fleet-wide communication array. All human personnel, prepare for consciousness integration with evolutionary nanites. We're about to discover what we can become when we stop limiting ourselves to biology. The nanites responded to the authorization by beginning immediate integration with human neural systems throughout the fleet. Elena felt the first microscopic machines entering her bloodstream and connecting with her nervous system. The sensation was extraordinary, like suddenly having access to infinite processing power and perfect memory. Integration successful, Danny Walsh reported, though his voice now carried harmonics that suggested enhanced vocal capabilities. Your Majesty, I can feel every system on this ship as if it were part of my own body. Elena experienced the transformation spreading through her consciousness. She could suddenly perceive electromagnetic spectrums beyond human vision, process tactical information with computer-like precision, and maintain awareness of multiple conversations simultaneously. She was becoming something new, something that was still human but also transcendently more. "Ma'am," Paul Garcia announced with excitement, "the Super Dreadnought has stopped advancing. I think they're detecting our transformation and trying to understand what we're becoming." Elena smiled, feeling capabilities flowing through her enhanced mind that made their previous weapons seem primitive by comparison. They're about to learn what happens when evolution accelerates beyond natural limits. Human Queen watches as humans shatter all laws of war in one battle. The transformation rippled through the human fleet as consciousness after consciousness merged with evolutionary nanites to become hybrid digital biological entities. Elena felt her awareness expanding exponentially, connecting not just with her own ship, but with every human vessel in the system. They were becoming a collective intelligence that retained individual identity while sharing unprecedented processing power. "Your Majesty," Chief Engineer Danny Walsh spoke, though his voice now resonated with harmonic frequencies that suggested massive data processing. "I can interface directly with our ship's quantum cores. We're not just controlling our technology anymore. We are our technology." Elena tested her new capabilities by reaching out mentally to touch the Aurora's navigation systems. Instead of reading displays, she experienced the ship's position in space-time as a direct sensory input. She could feel gravitational fields, electromagnetic radiation patterns, and quantum fluctuations as naturally as she had once felt warm sunlight. Admiral Thompson's enhanced consciousness interfaced with the tactical networks, providing real-time analysis of the approaching Super Dreadnought. "Ma'am, the Zephyrian vessel is larger than our initial estimates suggested. It's not just a ship, it's a mobile weapons platform designed to sterilize entire star systems." The Super Dreadnought had stopped its advance and was deploying scanning arrays, clearly attempting to understand what the humans had become. Elena could sense the alien artificial intelligence systems probing their transformed fleet, trying to categorize them according to known forms of life and technology. "They don't understand what we are now," Elena realized aloud. "Their scanning systems are designed to analyze either biological entities or artificial constructs, not conscious beings that exist as both simultaneously." Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres had become one with the Aurora's weapons systems, her consciousness distributed throughout every gun. "Your Majesty, I can feel weapons capabilities that didn't exist before our transformation. The nanites have enhanced our firepower beyond anything in our original specifications." Elena opened her expanded awareness to examine the enhanced weapons. What she discovered amazed her. The evolutionary nanites had not just improved existing systems, but had created entirely new categories of warfare: consciousness disruption beams that could shatter alien minds, reality manipulation fields that altered physics in localized areas, and quantum entanglement networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. All ships, Elena broadcast, using direct consciousness-to-consciousness communication that bypassed traditional radio entirely. Prepare to demonstrate why transforming ourselves was necessary. We're going to show the galaxy what post-human civilization is capable of. The human fleet began advancing toward the super dreadnought with coordinated precision that would have been impossible for biological crews to achieve. Each ship moved in perfect synchronization with all others, their actions predetermined by collective tactical analysis that processed millions of variables simultaneously. Captain Maria Rodriguez's consciousness had evolved beyond her transferred alien body to exist partially in quantum computer networks. Your Majesty, the siege platforms we captured are integrating with our collective consciousness. We're creating hybrid vessels that combine the best of human and Zephyrian technology. Elena watched through enhanced sensors as the commandeered siege platforms began transforming themselves using nanotechnology directed by human consciousness. The massive weapons became something new, vessels that looked alien but operated according to human tactical principles enhanced by digital processing power. "Ma'am," Navigator Paul Garcia announced, "the Super Dreadnought is launching automated attack drones, thousands of them, each one capable of destroying a traditional battleship." Elena analyzed the incoming threat through her connection to the fleet's collective intelligence. The drones were impressive by conventional standards, but they operated using predictable artificial intelligence algorithms. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeters against post-human consciousness that could process information at digital speeds while maintaining creative biological thinking. They were merely another obsolete weapon. "All ships engage the drones using parallel processing tactics," Elena ordered. "Show them the difference between artificial intelligence and enhanced consciousness." The human fleet opened fire with weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Energy beams curved through folded space-time to strike targets from impossible angles. Missiles equipped with quantum-entangled warheads created explosions that occurred before they were actually launched. Consciousness disruptor fields confused drone artificial intelligence by presenting them with logical paradoxes that crashed their programming. Within minutes, thousands of alien attack drones had been neutralized without inflicting significant damage on the human forces. The Super Dreadnought's automated systems had never encountered opponents who could think at digital speeds while retaining the unpredictability of biological consciousness. Elena felt the collective amazement of her transformed fleet as they realized the full scope of their new capabilities. They were no longer constrained by the limitations of either pure technology or biological evolution. They had become something entirely new. Conscious entities that could reshape reality through directed will, combined with unlimited processing power. "Your Majesty," Communications Officer Lisa Parker reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian Superdreadnought. Their commander wants to negotiate." Elena smiled, knowing that her expression was being simultaneously displayed on every human ship through their shared consciousness network. "Tell the Zephyrian commander that Queen Elena Martinez of the Post-Human Federation is willing to accept their unconditional surrender." The response came quickly, translated through systems that now seemed primitive compared to their enhanced consciousness. "Human creatures, what have you become? Our sensors detect impossible readings from your vessels." Elena opened a direct communication channel that bypassed traditional technology entirely, speaking directly into the alien commander's mind using consciousness transmission techniques. "We have become what you forced us to become. We are no longer bound by the laws of warfare, because we are no longer bound by the laws of biology, physics, or conventional reality. Human Queen watches as humans shatter all laws of war in one battle." The Zephyrian commander's response carried undertones of absolute terror that Elena could now detect directly through her enhanced consciousness. The alien leader had encountered many species during centuries of galactic conquest, but nothing had prepared them for beings that existed simultaneously as biological entities and digital consciousness. "Impossible readings continue from your fleet," the commander transmitted. Our strategic computers cannot calculate victory probabilities against opponents who violate fundamental constants of physics and biology. Elena felt amusement ripple through the collective consciousness of her transformed fleet. The Zephyrians had built their empire on technological superiority and predictable warfare patterns. They had expected humans to fight according to established rules, making them easy to defeat through superior numbers and firepower. Admiral Thompson, Elena spoke through their shared mental connection, initiate final demonstration protocols. Let's show them what post-human warfare actually looks like. The Aurora began generating energy fields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Elena could feel the ship's consciousness merging with her own as they prepared to demonstrate capabilities that would redefine the concept of impossible. The vessel started phasing in and out of normal space-time, becoming simultaneously present and absent from reality. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh's enhanced consciousness had integrated so completely with the ship's systems that he had become the vessel's guiding intelligence. Your Majesty, I'm ready to deploy trans-dimensional warfare capabilities. We can attack the super dreadnought from angles that don't exist in normal space. Elena nodded, feeling the decision process through her connection to thousands of enhanced human minds. They had moved beyond individual thought into collective intelligence that could consider multiple strategic options simultaneously, while maintaining personal identity and creative thinking. Begin trans-dimensional assault, Elena ordered. The human fleet suddenly existed in 17 different dimensional phases at once, allowing them to attack the super dreadnought from directions that violated basic geometry. Weapons fire erupted from locations in space-time where no ships were visible, striking the massive alien vessel with energies that bypassed its defensive systems by existing outside conventional physics. The super dreadnought's shields, designed to deflect attacks from normal space, provided no protection against weapons that fired from alternate dimensional planes. The massive vessel shuddered as its hull was pierced by projectiles that existed in quantum superposition until the moment of impact. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Amy Torres reported through their shared consciousness. The alien vessel's defensive artificial intelligence is experiencing logic cascade failures. It cannot process attack vectors that originate outside normal space-time. Elena watched through enhanced sensors as the super dreadnought's automated systems began shutting down in response to paradoxes they couldn't resolve. The alien artificial intelligence had been programmed to defend against every known form of warfare. But trans-dimensional attacks from post-human consciousness had never been anticipated. Your Majesty, Navigator Paul Garcia announced, we're detecting emergency evacuation procedures aboard the enemy vessel. The Zephyrian crew is abandoning ship. Through her expanded awareness, Elena could sense the terror and confusion radiating from the fleeing aliens. They were confronting an enemy that had transcended every category of threat their military doctrine could address. The humans had become something beyond their ability to fight, or even comprehend. Captain Maria Rodriguez's consciousness, now distributed across multiple hybrid vessels, provided tactical analysis that exceeded the processing power of traditional strategic computers. The escort factories are shutting down production and requesting permission to withdraw. Ma'am, I don't think they want to continue this engagement. Elena opened her consciousness to examine the retreating Zephyrian forces. The automated war factories that had been producing replacement ships were now broadcasting surrender signals in multiple alien languages, desperately trying to communicate their desire to avoid further combat. Open communication channels to all Zephyrian vessels, Elena ordered. This is Queen Elena Martinez of the Post-Human Federation. You have witnessed what humanity becomes when pushed beyond biological limits. You can surrender now, or discover what other impossible capabilities we've developed. The response came from multiple alien commanders simultaneously, their voices carrying the harmonics of absolute defeat. Post-human entities, we surrender all claims to human territory and colonies. Our species acknowledges the superiority of your transformed civilization. Elena felt satisfaction ripple through the collective consciousness of her fleet. They had achieved not just military victory, but had forced an entire galactic empire to acknowledge the supremacy of enhanced human capabilities. The Zephyrians, who had considered humans primitive insects, now begged for mercy from post-human consciousness. Admiral Thompson, Elena communicated through their mental link, broadcast our terms to all Zephyrian forces throughout the galaxy. complete withdrawal from human space, liberation of all enslaved colonies, and recognition of post-human sovereignty. The transformed Admiral's consciousness interfaced directly with galactic communication networks, transmitting demands that reached every Zephyrian vessel simultaneously. Terms transmitted, Your Majesty. We're receiving acknowledgement signals from Zephyrian commanders in over 200 star systems. Elena expanded her awareness to encompass the entire solar system, feeling the presence of every human consciousness that had been enhanced by evolutionary nanites. They had become something unprecedented, a species that retained creativity and individuality while possessing unlimited technological capabilities. Your Majesty, Communications Officer Lisa Parker reported, we're receiving congratulations from Admiral Collins on Earth. He's requesting permission to begin colony recovery operations. Elena smiled through her enhanced consciousness, knowing that her expression was being shared with every transformed human in the fleet. They had not only survived the ultimate test of warfare, but had evolved beyond the limitations that had once made them vulnerable to alien conquest. Permission granted, Elena replied. Admiral Collins, inform Earth's government that humanity has achieved something extraordinary. We are no longer just another species struggling for survival. We have become the galaxy's first post-biological civilization. The victory was complete, but Elena knew it was also the beginning of an entirely new chapter in human evolution. They had shattered every law of warfare, not through moral failure, but through transcendence beyond the categories that made such laws necessary. The galaxy would never be the same.